The creators of Bootstrap seem to have a fondness for buttons because there's just so stinking much that you can do with them with Bootstrap. So in this lesson, we're going to take a look at many, but not even all of the things that you can do with buttons, and even create things called button groups, which lead to larger constructs called button toolbars. We'll look at button drop-downs when we look at drop-downs in an upcoming lesson. Didn't even want to cover them here just because we're already covering so much. So I'm going to go ahead and add another page and just call this buttons.html. And we're going to talk about lots of stuff like button contextual colors. That's where we'll start. We'll talk about making buttons appear like hyperlinks or hyperlinks appearing like buttons. We'll look at outline buttons, what my friend calls ghost buttons. He's not a big fan of them for usability reasons. We'll look at changing the sizes of buttons with classes. We'll look at block level buttons that take up the entire area inside of a given div or whatever the container is. We'll look at disabling buttons or making them look disabled. Button groups like we talked about before. Button toolbars, nesting button groups to make drop downs, vertical button groups. I mean, the list goes on and on. So let's go ahead and get started here. And I guess I'll just work inside of this one cell and this one row and just keep working like that. All right, so there are a couple different ways to create a button, right? You can use the button HTML element like so. You can also create the button so that it's not self-enclosed and you can actually add the text like primary, for example. You can then add the class btn, and that will make your button into a real live Bootstrap button. All right, and you can see it doesn't have a whole lot in the way of styling or anything. However, it does have an active state. As I click down, you can see it has a blue border around it, and then it's now active from that point on. So let's first of all talk about the different ways that you can style up using those contextual colors. So you can use the btn dash, and then there's like every color you can think of: primary, secondary, success, info. We'll look at some of those in just a moment, but let's go ahead and run this again now. You can see we get as a primary button the royal blue as I hover, it's dark blue as I press down and activate it. It has a little bit of a blue outline and then even a darker blue. So those are the different states that you can add. Now there's also two other ways that you can create buttons as input type equals. There's also not just the button itself, but then there's also input type equals submit and reset. And you can use these button classes for each of those as well. So let's just start and look at these without any changes to them. All right, they just look like normal HTML buttons. However, when I apply the Bootstrap styles to them, now they take on the Bootstrap look and feel. Okay. Now, in addition to that, we looked at just the btn primary, but there's a whole bunch of these different contextual colors. We've talked about contextual colors already, so I'm not going to go into it too deeply. But you can see that here's a secondary, success, info, warning, danger, and so on. Great. All right, so next up, let's create another row here. Let's take one of our buttons, like the first one we were working with here. And what we're going to do to it is actually apply a class called btn link to make that button look like a hyperlink. Conversely, we can take a hyperlink and we can give it the btn class and give it like btn primary, and then let's just give it an href and do that. And so, all right, we're taking a button, making it look like a hyperlink. We're taking a hyperlink and making it look like a button. Crazy stuff. All right, they also recommend that if you're going to do this where you actually take a hyperlink and make it look like a button, that if you use the role equal button, it'll help assistive readers, screen readers, tell the user that it's not actually a hyperlink but a button. Might be useful. All right, let's move on to outline buttons. And in that case, let's go ahead and MD 6. So what we can do is take one of our little buttons here. Let's go ahead and grab that one again. And here we're going to give it btn-primary-outline. All right, and so you can see what that looks like. All right, so essentially, once you hover, you'll get the same activity, but this usually indicates that it's a secondary button. Usually you see them together, like one that has a color and one that has no color, trying to call your attention to the one that has color and then also giving a secondary option there. And then you can also use all of the colors that we used up to this point for this purpose as well. So not only do you have BTN primary outline, but also secondary outline, success, info, warning, and danger. So let's go ahead and run that. All right, you can see how those kind of correspond with the ones we looked at earlier. Great. Next up, let's take a look at, and I'll just grab this row here. Let's take a look at the sizes that you can apply. So let's just go primary on that one. And you can also create a large and a small version by adding BTN LG for the large. Go ahead and add that in there. And then BTN SM for small. All right, so let's take a look at these. Great. You can see the significant difference in them in terms of the font and the padding and the like. Okay, next up. So let's take a look at a button. Let's grab this one again. And this time what we're going to do to this button is actually make it a block level button. So let's make it large first of all, BTN LG, and then I'm going to add the BTN block, and that should take up all 6 columns then of our cell. And I'll do the same thing, but just with using the secondary, so we can kind of see them and how they'll look. Instead of being applied side by side, they'll be top and bottom. All right, like so. Kind of a cool effect. And they will obviously grow larger as we make it larger. Very cool. All right, so let's start with this again. And go down here. Next up, what we want to do is take a look at the button as in a disabled state. So let's just do button primary, but then we're going to add the disabled attribute to it so we can see what it looks like. Heck, we'll do the same thing with secondary as well. And then just to give you 2 looks. All right, you can see it's pre-grayed out, and then we get this hover over action where you get this undeniable visual that says you cannot click this. So that's pretty cool. Okay, continuing on here. Let's take a look at button groups. So a button group will allow us to do something like treat a bunch of buttons as part of a family, all kind of connected to each other. So class equals btn group, and I'll go ahead and set the role equals group, and that should be all I have to do. And then inside here we'll add some buttons. Class equals btn. Oh, I guess we can do primary. All right, and we'll just do that first, second, and third. The key here is this class equals button group that makes this all happen as a div that wraps around your buttons. All right, and see how you can kind of get this effect where on the outermost items in the button group, you get the rounded corners. And I guess we could probably even, although I haven't tried this before, let's make one of these a warning just to see what it looks like. May not look quite as aesthetically pleasing, but I don't know, it's not so bad if you had a specific reason for that. So button groups are pretty cool. If you want to kind of make like a little mini toolbar in the middle of your web page or something. But wait, it gets even better than that, because you can take what you do here. Let's just grab this whole thing. And you can then wrap that with a div. Class equals btn toolbar. And we'll go role equals toolbar. All right, and so we'll stick in our button groups. And here we'll go fourth, fifth, and sixth. And maybe we'll do something like outline here. We'll go maybe secondary outline. And then maybe warning outline. All right, so let's see how this manifests itself. Well, I think we need some more. We're going to need a little more space here to make this work well. So I'm going to actually blow this out to a 12 and go and rerun this. All right, so they're actually all part of the same family, although I made them look dramatically different. They're all part of a toolbar, essentially, with different groups separating them. Okay. All right, and so here, let's take this group one more time, and I'm going to apply some sizing to it. We'll make a small version and a large version. So here we'll go btn group, and then btn group small, and then we'll go btn group, btn group large, and then tell you what, we'll go for broke here. One last one, btn group, btn group vertical. That'll blow your mind. All right, let's run it. Okay, so you can see smaller, larger, and whoa, how cool is that with the vertical? Very neat. And we'll wrap up buttons. There's even more you can do than that. You can always consult their documentation, but wow, a lot of cool things you can do with buttons. All right, let's continue on. See you in the next lesson.